From the bustling streets of Jersey City to the serene shores of Cape May, New Jersey is not just the Garden State, it is our haven, our sanctuary. But behind every front door lies a delicate balance of rights and responsibilities between landlords, uh, like I said, but behind every front door lies a delicate balance of rights and responsibilities between landlords and tenants, a balance that can sometimes be tested, especially when facing the daunting prospect of eviction. Why am I all of a sudden talking about all this? Stick around, you'll get to know. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special live discussion on immigration and jobs talk show. I'm your host, Rajni Bharara, and I'm delighted to have you all join us today for what promises to be an informative and crucial conversation. Today, we'll be delving into the intricate world of landlord-tenant rights and obligations under New Jersey law, specifically focusing on navigating the eviction process. Whether you are a tenant facing eviction or a landlord seeking guidance on legal procedures, this discussion is tailored to provide clarity and insight into your rights and responsibilities. And who better to guide us through this complex terrain than attorney Seema Singh? So, everyone, join me in welcoming Seema Singh on Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. Hi, Seema, welcome back.
Hi, Rajni. Glad to be here again. How's
And
the weather there?
as
It's
usual,
snowing here. It's snowing in New Jersey. It's bad weather, but glad to be on the show again.
you're looking as pretty as the snow, so no complaints, even if it's snowing.
Thank you.
So, everyone, please note that this session is being streamed live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and the handle is Immigration Talk Show. Don't forget to subscribe to us because this is something that really matters to us. And also remember, if you have a question to the attorney, wherever you're watching it from, please comment with your questions. We'll be glad to answer them. All right. Without any further ado, firstly, let me read out the important disclaimer. So, by watching our videos, you agree to understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. All right, now without any further ado, Seema, let's take up very first question. So, because the topic is dedicated to rights of landlords and tenants, so let's talk about what are some fundamental rights and responsibilities that landlords and tenants have under New Jersey law regarding the eviction process.
So there are many rights and responsibilities of both the landlords and the tenants. First
Mhm,
of all, a landlord obviously has the right to rent out his premises
mhm,
and to rent it at fair market, rent, a reasonable rent, to collect a security deposit. He has a right to make sure that there's no damage to his property, and he can put clauses in there as per his needs. He can put in about dispute resolution. He can put in about eviction. Um, you know the term of the lease, all of that he's entitled to. He can rent out his premises for as long as he wants,
mhm,
and collect a security deposit as well, and to provide good, you know, to have the right to collect money and rent on a regular and timely basis. The tenants, on the other hand, have a right to, a habitable uh, premises. The conditions should be habitable for any place that they're renting. They
mhm,
have a right to quiet enjoyment without any interference from the landlord. The landlord has a right to inspect the premises. However, the tenant's right is that the landlord needs to notify them when entering and give them enough notice to come when they're coming for inspection. The tenant, his obligations are to keep the landlord's property in good condition, to make the repairs as and when needed, to pay their rent on a timely basis.
mhm,
And as far as pets are concerned, this is a big issue these days. A lot of landlords do not want tenants to have pets in the premises. So that's another thing. Whatever is in your lease, you've got to abide by it. And the
mhm,
tenant's obligations are to pay the rent on time.
mhm,
If the lease is expiring, they need to renew it. If there's an increase in the rent, to make sure that you pay that on a timely basis,
Mm-hmm.
and to give enough notice if you're going to not renew your lease,
Mm-hmm.
and not to become a holdover tenant, and not to be a menace to other tenants. You
Yeah.
have to give the right to other tenants to enjoy their premises. You can't have loud music on and disturb all other tenants. So each tenant has a right and obligation, just as the landlords do. And I can answer more questions if people have specific ones.
Yeah, sure. I mean, definitely, they are definitely going to come up with the questions. I think I'm not sure if we have already got the chats coming or not, but I'll have to check that. But because I'm so much into what you're answering here, so but you know what? Against the pets, I mean, they are as human as the human beings. I mean, the
But
normal
a lot
human.
of pets, they share there's smell left in the apartments, and a lot of landlords don't allow pets in premises. A lot of them are pet friendly. So it all depends on what your lease requires. But landlords have the right to put that in the lease. And even the landlords are obligated that when they sign the lease, they have to provide certain documentation. For
Mhm.
example, the certificate of occupancy, they have to give a landlord registration statement to the tenant, a truth in renting, crime insurance, security deposit act is what they have to follow to collect the security deposit, which can only be 1.5 months of your rent.
Mhm.
Um, so these are the things that landlords are required, but they do have a right to decide who lives in their premises, whether pets are allowed or not.
Okay, okay, got it. But now let's take up another question then. So let's talk about the immigration status playing an important role here. So how does an individual's immigration status impact these rights and responsibilities? Firstly, do they, and if yes, how?
Well, it should not. It's
Okay.
illegal if there's some discrimination based on a person's immigration status. It's an illegal question to even ask when you're renting out. Um, but when it does become they have the right to go to the DCR, the Division of Civil Rights, file a complaint. They can file a regular civil complaint for harassment and discrimination against the landlord, because
Mhm.
there should not be any kind of an impact just because a person is an immigrant. As long as you are law abiding by your lease, paying your rent in time, there shouldn't be that immigration because you are from a different
Mhm.
national origin. That shouldn't
Right.
impact your rental relationship with your landlord.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But then, okay, I mean, the question is not from what I've shared with you or what we have discussed earlier, but then this question is actually from my own side. Have you had such cases where you have got complaints regarding discrimination or racism from people where people have
I've
filed
got
such cases?
I've got complaints, but those are just misused because they haven't paid their rent. So they palm it on the fact that, oh, they are discriminating against me because I'm of
Ah,
this
okay.
origin. And then you find out they haven't paid rent in like 7 months.
Uh-huh.
So, and during COVID, that was very predominant because, they were misusing COVID to not pay rent because there was a moratorium on these eviction cases. So I've had represented landlords who have not gotten rent for a year and a half, during the
Goodness.
moratorium. And then when the cases opened up, they lost all that money because the tenants never had it. So yes, I've had cases, but they were just misusing their immigration status or national origin to not pay rent.
Mm. So then, I mean, these such cases are not just happening in a particular country, but such cases are happening everywhere where people are not
Right.
paying rents, and then yeah, okay,
Mhm.
understood. All right, so now let's move on to our next question. But before we move on to next question, is it possible for you to fix the camera? I think the camera is moving a bit. If you can have, yeah, really appreciate it. Perfect. Thank you so much.
I don't know why it keeps moving. Anyway,
No worries. Okay, now let's take up our next question. So the next question that I have for you, Seema, is can landlords legally evict tenants based on their immigration status in New Jersey?
legally, they cannot evict. It'll be
Okay.
illegal if they evict just based on the immigration status. It's absolutely illegal. And
Mm,
there are laws. The Constitution itself said you can, ask the status, an immigration status of any individual. Even the police, when they stop you for speeding, they can't ask you your, your legal status or your illegal status in this country. They can ask those questions. So, tenants cannot evict based upon their immigration status.
Okay, but people might be having this question in mind, and also they might be confused that whether can they or they cannot. But you have answered the question beautifully. So thank you so much for that. Now let's move on to our next question. And the next question that I have for you is: are there any specific circumstances where immigration status might be a valid reason for eviction under New Jersey law?
I've never faced any kind of a. I mean, it's illegal, right? Why should a immigration status be any valid reason for eviction other than non-payment of rent? You're not abiding by the rules of your, the terms and conditions of your lease. You're being a menace in the neighborhood. Violating other people's peace, and there's interference. If
Mm-hmm.
there's criminal activity, then yes, that could impact your being evicted. But not immigration status. It would. It's not immigration status. But there are times that people do discriminate, and that's not legal, it's illegal. So you
Basis
can
on
think of
immigration
many.
status?
Yeah, there are landlords who do it, but it's illegal. So it's not like a qualified specific circumstance where you're an immigrant and he can get rid of you. There is nothing like that. That's why there are a lot of class action suits, that tenants have filed because of this kind of discrimination.
Mm. So
You
then,
can file a complaint.
so if the tenants face such discrimination based on their immigration status, then they can press charges on their landlords too?
Yeah, they can file, for discrimination, harassment. They can go to the DCR, the Division of Civil Rights, and file a
Mhm.
complaint.
Okay, okay, got it. All right, thank you so much for answering the question, Seema. Now let's move on to our next question, which is an important one. So, if you can talk about, what legal protections exist for immigrant tenants facing eviction in New Jersey? Are there any protections? And if yes, what are they?
Yeah, there's a landlord-tenant law that one has to follow. It's not only for immigrants; it's for anyone. The law is universal, whether you're an immigrant or you're a citizen or and a non-immigrant. It's the landlord-tenant laws. So these laws are in place where tenants are protected. The landlord cannot, even if you don't pay your rent, the landlord can't just walk into um, your your premises and say, okay, you got to leave now. That's self-help and it's illegal. So they have to file in court to get a warrant for removal, to get a judgment of possession and a warrant of removal. They cannot, without that, get rid of a tenant. So there is court proceedings that take place, and I can, itemize that in the, later on as to what is required. So these are the legal protections in place. There are landlord-tenant laws which are pretty strict, and if a landlord goes against it, it's trying to do self-help, you can go to the police station and file a complaint against the landlord, and those are criminal activities.
Okay, okay, got it. But then, are these protections any different from those afforded to citizens or legal residents?
No, it's the same. There's one set of rule for all immigrants. And immigrants, you're talking about legal immigrants, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one set of laws for everyone. I mean, even illegal ones, nobody can ask them their immigration status. But yeah, if a landlord is knows you're illegal and he's doesn't want you there anymore, he can just file a complaint with ICE or the USCIS.
Oh, okay,
They
okay.
can file, and I know a situation where they did it, and those guys were deported. So he didn't have to go to court to get them removed. He did it in another way, but because he knew they were illegal. But he cannot ask that question. I don't know how he found out.
Okay, okay, got it. So now let's take about now our next question then. If it's a straight no, so let's jump on to the next question. So the next question that I have for you, Seema, is are there resources or organizations available to assist immigrant tenants in navigating the eviction process in New Jersey?
So when you talk about navigating the eviction process, are you talking about filing the eviction? They're not going to file the eviction, right? So they are going to try and get resources so that they can pay their rent. I think that's what your question means.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously a tenant is not going to evict themselves. So when an eviction is filed, there are many resources that they can tap into based upon their their criteria, whether they fit in the criteria or not. I know the Department of Community Affairs provides housing assistance, housing production, community development, all of that. They can reach out to them for some assistance. There's the eviction prevention program, and it is relief to tenants who have suffered deep economic losses through no fault of theirs. You can tap into that. Then a lot of these utility companies have programs to help with their utility bills. I know there's a NJ Smart program. They provide rental assistance and grants of up to $5,000 for overdue rent or mortgage or property taxes. Then there's a NJ Shares mortgage assistance program to people who are suffering with financial crisis. There's a eviction diversion program for low-income people. They have access to legal services and experienced caseworkers who can help them, guide them. They have resources that they can try and find them either money to pay their rent or assistance to find another location for themselves. So there are many programs in place in New Jersey for for immigrants and non-immigrants. I
Okay.
don't know, so you have to fit in their criteria. I think they have the income level. You have to fit in that income level
Mm.
to get it. There are many other criteria based upon the program. There's
But then
also an
what?
eviction
Yeah.
diversion and legal services program for low-income people.
Okay. But then what type of support do these resources typically offer?
Well, some of them will give you, a rental assistance. Some of them will find you a place to live. Some of
Uh-huh.
these caseworkers will try and work with you to find other resources to help you. So there are many different ways, and I know a lot of utility companies have certain programs where they'll help you with the utility bills if you haven't paid it. Like I said, that NJ Smart program has $5,000 worth of grants they can give you towards your overdue rent, but you have to qualify. So you have to
Okay.
fill their forms and qualify. And if you are back on your, you have overdue rent, you shouldn't wait too long. You should start researching which programs and apply for it. Because I've had tenants who come to court on the day of trial and say, "Oh, I need to apply, so I need an extension," and they don't. Landlord is not mandated to give them any extension. New Jersey is a very landlord friendly state.
Mm. Okay, okay. But you discussed here that you have had such cases where the rent was pending from the tenant side. It was long due for about a year or so. So at that time, in such cases, what does actually happen? What rights are given to the landlords, and what happens to the tenants if they are not able to provide the rent for a year?
So at that point, no rights were given to the landlords because there was a moratorium on filing evictions. Normally, if you're past due like a month or 2 months, a landlord can file their eviction for non-payment of rent. But
Mhm.
during COVID, I was talking about COVID actually. During COVID, there was a moratorium on filing these eviction cases. So they had no choice. There was nothing available to them. So when the courts opened up, and I believe it was in 21 or 22 when all the courts opened up for eviction cases, the
Mhm.
landlords filed their eviction complaints with all the past due rent, which amounted to like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the tenants didn't have those lump sums to pay, so they were evicted. But the landlords lost all that money. Um, and if you have overdue rent, the landlord tenant court doesn't provide you with your overdue rent. They only provide you your premises. They will only evict the tenant. Then you have to file a separate lawsuit to against the tenant for your past due rent.
Ah, okay.
So, and then if you know that the tenant has no money and you file this case, you'll get a judgment. But what is it worth? Can you collect on it? So it's a business decision. So a lot of landlords just let it go. They were actually glad that they got their premises back.
Mm. Okay, okay.
It
But
was
then
very difficult to evict them. You couldn't get rid of them during COVID.
oh, yeah. I mean, you are the attorney. That's so. But being an attorney yourself, Seema, do you want these rights to be more strict towards landlord or tenants?
I think it should be fair, right? You have a deal, you have a lease, comply with it.
Mm,
A landlord has mortgage to pay. If he's renting you one of his properties, he's also got a mortgage and bills to pay. So
yeah,
if you don't pay him the rent, how is he going to pay it?
that's true.
So I think it should be fair for both. And then certain landlords, they need to be also cognizant of the fact that they can't, make unnecessary increases of rent, or start harassing a tenant. Give them habitable conditions to live in. If something breaks, go and help. They should also be um, conscious of the fact that they need to keep their tenant comfortable. So I think it should be a fair process for both. I don't favor one over the other.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Everyone should be, the law should be fair to both the sides. Absolutely. So, everyone, people have joined us. Huram is there. Hi, Huram. And then Sanjay is there, who's posted their question. Hi, Sanjay. So, we'll be addressing your questions. But right now, I would like to tell you that if you need any help regarding these matters, don't forget to reach out to attorney Seema Singh. You can call her at 609-454-3168. And you can also mail her at seema@ssinglawcom. You can visit her website. She has two websites, www.ssinglawcom, and the other one is seemasingh.com. And all right, so now let's talk about our next question, and let's address this question now. So people normally get confused about what documentation they need to provide, whether, I mean, I'm talking about the tenants here. So what documentation is required for immigrants to rent property in New Jersey? Immigrants or non-immigrants, what
It's the
documentation
same.
do they need to provide?
It's the same. So a landlord has a right to get pay stubs from them,
Hmm.
W-2s, a W-4 form, bank statements. If there are any court-ordered settlements that they have,
Hmm.
they can get a credit history of the tenant, their employment status. They can also get a criminal report, and then they can also ask you for references from your prior landlords, or from your friends, or personal references.
Hmm. Okay, okay. So, but then, are there any specific documentation that the tenant should be really, really careful about?
If I was a landlord, I would definitely make sure I get a proper credit history and talk to the prior landlords, because you don't want to take a trouble. Why would a tenant be changing their rental property? Either
Mm,
they've had a problem with the landlord, and maybe they haven't. The landlord wanted the property back for some other reason, and they can do that. So that, to me, that's extremely important, and also to see if they have income they're making. So the W-2s and pay stubs are very important for a landlord to make sure. And criminal history. You don't want to give your place to a sex offender, or someone who. And sex offenders are registered. So if
mm,
you have a sex offender, they are registered. So, and your neighbors can find out if they are a sex offender, they may not want to live there.
mhm. But have you had cases where people have, tenants especially, they have given, I mean, they have given their false documentation to the landlords?
No.
Never?
How would they give false documentation? Um,
Yeah, I mean, because, it happens in a lot of countries. So that's why I was thinking whether it happens in New
uh,
Jersey or not.
I mean, here the landlords are pretty savvy now, especially COVID-19 sort of made them even more vigilant. They make sure that they do a credit history, employment checks, and all of that. So, what false documentation would they give?
Mm, that's true.
And
That's true.
obviously, they'll give their driver's license and social security. That goes without saying. Those are the documentation that they have a right to take.
Okay. And I think you're like me, like I'm involved in your conversation and your answers. I think your camera is also very much involved in listening to you. That's why it's again and again, it's dropping down. So thank you so much for fixing it again. I'm sure it's going to, drop again because, like I said, as I'm enjoying, the camera is also enjoying you answering. Okay. Now let's take our next question, Seema. So the next question that we have here is about how do these New Jersey, okay, are there any are there any requirements for translation services or accommodations?
So, yes, and in fact, Governor Murphy just passed the Immigrant Bill of Rights,
Hmm.
and in that he has that has several parts to it. So number one, he wants to strengthen the domestic workers by making sure that there are anti-harassment, anti-discrimination laws in place, health and safety laws, privacy laws for all these immigrant workers. In
Hmm.
addition, he, because of the diversity, he wants to make sure that um, diversity in New Jersey is accurately understood. I mean, it's one
Mm,
of the states that has is highly diverse. So, and he wants to promote language access
mhm.
because of the immigrant population in seven different languages. All the New Jersey forms, documents, and all of that is being translated into seven non-English um, languages.
Oh,
So
okay.
so these translation services are going to be starting, and I believe over the next 23 months that it's going to happen. And then finally he also wants to do an update on the demographics data collection, and the methods he wants to in those methods he wants to include Asians, Middle Eastern, Pacific Islanders, Indian, South Asian, North Africans, which you will normally not see. So he wants to include all these categories in the the demographic data collection, so that they can understand how diverse New Jersey is and what are the requirements to get rid of these the language barriers that the
Right.
immigrants are faced with. When they
Mm.
go online to pull out a form, it's all in English. So now they're translating it into seven different non-English languages.
Oh, okay. That's
So
interesting.
you
And
have
seems
translators, like in court, and we have to advise the court before a hearing
yeah. Hmm.
that my client needs an interpreter.
Mm.
So those are available in all different languages, and you have to let them know which exact language you are looking for an interpreter, and then they get one person there.
Mhm. Okay, but then can you share before we take this next question? I think we have already addressed this. How does the new yeah, we have addressed this question. Yeah. So, Seema, but before we take up our next question, I would like to know from you. Can you share a really interesting case, on such matter that you have received?
For landlord tenant.
Yeah.
During COVID, I was representing the landlord and his wife. They owned this very palatial home in New Jersey, and so the rent was pretty high. And they had this one individual who walked in, and he did it with an option to buy it.
Yeah.
So these, and then he without I don't know what, they didn't hire an attorney. They got this guy to they took a security deposit. He gave a security deposit for a whole year, and
Hmm.
that's a red flag for me, because they did not take any of his W-2s, didn't do any background check, did none of those. And
Okay.
then they were building their own home, so they were going to move out of this home and rent it to him. So their home got delayed. This guy moved in with his family even prior to their move out, and started living there. They built like a friendship, but that was the worst thing they ever did, because he gave a year's rent. And I told them, I said, when they hired me, it was during COVID to get the eviction done. So I, did all the notice, and I'm like, why wouldn't you do a background check? We
Mm.
couldn't find that guy anywhere on any checks. They didn't have any W-2s, didn't have any idea about how much he was making. And during COVID, he stopped paying rent. And for a year, that was the one I was talking about. For
Hmm.
almost 2 years, he did not pay rent, and his rent was about $6,000 a month. So you can do the math. So they lost out on all of that rent. And then finally, when the courts opened, he was
The
trying to
camera again is surprised by hearing, the
uh,
amount.
keeps
Yeah.
moving.
Then yeah, you were telling. Then you when you moved to
So,
court.
so then once we went to court, he tried every which way to try for a hardship evict this and hardship that. So there are hardship stays you can get. However,
Mhm.
you have to post your, you have to post rent, and he couldn't do that. So eventually we got rid of him, and they lost about over 200 plus $1,000.
Oh my God.
So at, at that point they were so relieved to get there, and he had made a disaster at that in that home. He had destroyed and damaged this beautiful looking home. Um, so that
Yeah.
was one case which I was actually very sad about, but they were very happy they got their home back.
Yeah. If not the money, at least the home they got back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Seema, for sharing this interesting case. I mean, it's a little bit sad to hear, but then, it was an interesting case for you and for also us to hear. So, thank you so much for that. And now, before we proceed further, we would like to take a short break. But everyone, don't go anywhere because when we return, Seema will be addressing your questions live. So, grab a snack, stretch your legs, and make sure to send in your questions via a live chat. And stay tuned.
Use the restroom.
Are you an IT consultant seeking a new opportunity? We offer job placement services for US citizens, green cards, EADs, and visa holders. We also sponsor various work visas like H1B, E3, TN, and green cards. 20 plus years of experience in the industry, exceptional employee benefits, highly rated by our employees. Global presence with 200 plus recruiters and direct clients. Connect with us. Call us on the number 833 412 8472 or mail us at support@higheritpeople.com or visit our website www.higheritpeople.com. Are you an IT consultant seeking a new opportunity? We offer job placement services for US citizens, green cards, EADs, and visa holders. We also sponsor various work visas like H1B, E3, TN, and green cards. 20 plus years of experience in the industry, exceptional employee benefits, highly rated by our employees. Global presence with 200 plus recruiters and direct clients. Connect with us. Call us on the number 833 412 8472 or mail us at support@higheritpeople.com or visit our website www.higheritpeople.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to our live discussion on immigration and jobs talk show. I'm your host, Rajni Bharara, and the topic for today is landlord-tenant rights and obligations in New Jersey. We are joined by attorney Seema Singh, who is ready to tackle with your questions head on. So, without any further ado, let's jump right into it. But before, I would again like to read out the disclaimer for you. If we can please have it on screen. because these are going to be the chat questions addressing to our lovely viewers who have joined us from different platforms. So everyone, by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. All right, now without any further ado, Seema, we have enjoyed the break. The break was a little lengthy, but it's forgiven because I like to keep our audiences waiting so that we can have more and more questions coming from them. So the first question that I have on my screen is from Sanjay. Sanjay has posted this on YouTube, and Sanjay wants to know, when someone comes newly on H1B, how can they rent an apartment as they would not be having any salary slip or SSN by that time? Mm.
Yeah, it is tough, and I've had a lot of people face that situation.
Mhm.
You will either have to get your employer to co-sign, or somebody who will have to co-sign on the lease. Only then will you get it, and their paperwork and their standing would take precedence over yours. Or somebody takes a lease in their name. It's tough because nobody wants to do it. But I know when you come on H1B, a lot of employers have some provision for H1B candidates that are coming from abroad. I have clients who have either their own guest houses, so they allow you to temporarily stay there till you start getting a paycheck or pay slips, and then you can get an apartment. But yeah, it is a challenge.
Okay, okay. Sanjay, but I hope you have got the answer for your question, and thank you so much for posting your question. Now let's take up another viewer question, and the question is from Huram. So Huram wants to know, Huram K, and Huram wants to know, what are the valid reasons for a landlord to evict a tenant in New Jersey? Okay.
The first and foremost biggest reason is non-payment of rent. If you are not paying your rent, they can evict you. If
Okay.
you're not following several rules in or the terms and conditions of your lease, they can evict you. If you are a nuisance and creating a lot of issues and interference in your neighborhood, and other tenants are complaining, they can evict you. These are some of the main reasons. If you are deliberately damaging their property and they come for inspections and they keep repeatedly seeing things damaged, and you're not repairing them, they can evict you. They're all part of the terms and conditions. If your lease has expired and you haven't renewed it and you're just holdover tenants, that's a reason to start the eviction process. So there are many reasons, but the foremost is non-payment of rent.
Oh, okay, okay. But then, okay, thank you so much for posting your question, Huram, and I hope you have got the answer for your question. But Seema, okay, but what proofs do landlord needs to show to the court when they are complaining about, because, at times what happens is the tenants also say that, no, we are not damaging the property and this and that. They also, they also try to protect themselves, right? So what proofs do landlord needs to give to the court?
So when I have a lot of landlord clients who I tell them that when you are renting out your property, make sure you take a full video and picture of the entire
Hmm.
inside. Get them to sign a form that this is how it looked. They do inspections on a 6-month basis. Go and check it out. Take pictures if there are things broken. Give
Uh-huh.
them a notice that by this time it should be fixed. If it's not, so you're compiling all these photographs, videos. You're compiling all of that
Yeah.
as your evidence that these repairs, and there was a tenant who, the husband and wife used to fight a lot, and I still remember this one landlord client of mine. uh, the husband had punched the door, so the doors, several doors in that apartment were like broken because of their internal fights, and he would go take pictures of it, and they didn't repair it when they left, so he took out money from their security deposit to to fix those doors. So
Oh,
you take pictures. You always don't do it. You
okay.
have to you have to build your own case. If you're a landlord and you have a lot of properties, then landlords know how to do this. They're
Yeah.
pretty good.
That's true. That's true. Thank you so much for answering the question, Seema. Now let's move on to our next viewer. The next viewer is Pawan, and Pawan has posted the question on YouTube. And Pawan wants to know: need to file the H1B amendment for changing the location to different country in New Jersey? Different country in New Jersey. Shall I
County,
evict?
county, we
Oh,
say.
county. I'm sorry. A different county in New Jersey. The second part to it is shall I evict how I explain the situation to landlord or need to evict ASAP?
So you're not going to evict yourself. You're the tenant. So if you have a lease in place, you can tell the tenant, but 10 times the tenants are going to charge you the full lease amount. If your lease is expiring in a year and you quit now, a landlord may have another tenant. They have to make sure that they mitigate their damages. So if he has a tenant now, you may be in good shape. If he doesn't, you will still owe him the rent up until the termination of or the date of expiration of the lease.
Okay. Okay.
But you can sit and talk to him. A lot of tenants are pretty reasonable, and right now there's a huge demand um, for these premises. So if he has somebody in the waiting, you may luck out.
Okay.
Or if you have somebody who wants to rent your premises, maybe you can go to an assignment of these.
Got it. I hope, Pawan, you have also got the answer, and thank you so much for posting your question. Now let's move on to our next viewer, and the next question that we have is from Martin, and Martin has posted this on YouTube, and Martin wants to know how can tenants retrieve their personal belongings after being evicted in New Jersey, and what recourse do they have if their belongings are unlawfully retained by the landlord?
So first of all, there's a process when evictions are, when you file an eviction complaint, there's a hearing, there's a settlement conference, there's a hearing, and then there's a judgment of possession entered if your rent is not paid. I'm just going with that one clause. Your rent
Sure.
is not paid, you don't, and you can pay your rent up until the end of day, even on the date of the hearing, and you can get your premises back. But if you don't, then a judgment of possession is entered. Um, that judgment of possession is then converted into a warrant for removal. Warrant for removal is passed down within 3 days. There's a 3 day waiting period. It goes to the sheriff. The
Mm-hmm.
sheriff will then come and they'll post a notice that, you need to move out.
Mm-hmm.
3 days after that, if you haven't moved out, they lock that premises. So if your personal belongings haven't been moved and you're out, uh, you can reach out to the landlord to collect your belongings. The landlord has to give you notice prior to removing your belongings, and give you a certain reasonable time to come in and pick it up. If they don't provide you the notice, they just throw it away. And if they give you notice, you don't show up. The landlord is has a right to get rid of that stuff. So if they unlawfully do it without giving you notice, without giving you a chance to pick it up, then you can go file a complaint with the police station, and then file a regular complaint for retrieving or for getting compensated for all the your personal belongings that have either been destroyed or sold or whatever's happened to them.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much for posting your question, Martin. I hope you have got the answer. Seema, now I would like to know from you, in comparison to other cases, how many in a year do you get cases regarding, tenants and landlords?
So I represent a few landlords who have multi-story rental buildings.
Uh-huh.
And there was a point I was representing the YMCA, the YWCA. So
Hmm.
they had like low income housing. So I used to have like bulk cases that I would go to court with at least 10 or 15, do it and come out. So right now I do at least maybe 25, 30.
Oh, okay. I mean, 25 and 30 are also too much, don't you think?
No, they're good. I mean, those are easy. They haven't paid rent. You just, in New
Okay.
Jersey, they just pass a judgment of possession. They just go. There are very few tenants who will fight back and say, "Oh no, I want to stay." They just disappear.
Oh, okay. All right.
So those are easy cases.
Uh-huh. Okay. So, I mean, easy for you to say because you're an attorney yourself, but not for us at least. Okay. So now let's take up another viewer question. The next question that we have is from, can we have it on screen, please? So we are getting too many questions from too many viewers. So thank you so much for constantly watching and coming to the show, coming and subscribing to our channel, and then watching our episode and then posting your question. Your trust means a lot to us. So just thank you so much again, our lovely viewers. So then this next question is from Eddie Joseph, and Eddie wants to know that how can tenants and landlords educate themselves about their rights and responsibilities regarding evictions under New Jersey law? Any resources or organizations to help navigate the process? I think.
Hire a lawyer. Go talk to a lawyer. They'll tell you about it. You can go on the New Jersey court's website.
Mhm.
They'll have forms in place as to how to, you know, get into a lease or different forms. If you're a landlord, there are forms there for how to file an eviction, and they walk you through that process. There are manuals that the New Jersey courts have put out with landlord-tenant rights, and in there. So there are manuals in place. If you go to the NJ courts website, that will.
Okay. I think, but we after this, even after this question, we do have a follow up from Eddie. So can we have the follow up question as well? Okay. Are there any legal protections or support systems in place for IT workers facing eviction due to job loss or other employment related circumstances?
Why just IT workers? I mean, there are many people who are facing job losses.
Mm.
So, the legal protections, and you can reach out to those resources I spoke about if they can help you. There's an NJ Smart program for $5,000. But I'm assuming as an IT worker, you're in a high bracket income level. So I'm not sure whether you would qualify. But there are many people losing jobs. So I mean, I'm not sure what support system other than these different resources to you got to pay your rent. So whichever way you can find the money to pay your rent, it all depends on your income level. I mean, I don't know how to answer this question. An IT worker, I'm assuming you're making good money. So because you have a job loss
Hmm.
temporarily, you can reach out to these resources with the DCA, the EPP, the NJ Smart program, NJ Shares. There's an eviction diversionary program. There are caseworkers who can guide you to different resources as well.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. So, Eddie, I hope you have got the answer for your question. And, I think I'm not sure if I'm framing the question right or wrong, but then let me ask it. So,
Yeah,
let's say, all right. So, let's take up Rajesh question first then. So, Rajesh has posted this on YouTube, and Rajesh wants to know how can tenants and landlords educate themselves about their rights? Did
I
we?
just did that.
Yeah,
I just
we already
answered
have
that.
addressed this. Okay, so because sometimes what happens is maybe they're talking about people are on work visa, and then suddenly they get lay off, right? So on basis of that, can the landlord have right to to file a case or maybe to go against the tenant?
No, as long as
No.
you're paying your rent, why does the landlord care what visa you're on?
Okay.
You need to be paying your rent. He's concerned about his rent and following the lease. If you're
Mm.
violating that, that's when he can file an eviction. Not because you've lost your job. You may lose your job, but you're still paying his rent. How can he evict you?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Okay, so the next question that we have is from Moria, and Moria has posted this question on YouTube. And Moria wants to know, once a landlord obtains a right of possession in New Jersey, what rights do tenants have, and what are the timelines for vacating the premises?
So after the writ of possession, it you have to move for a warrant for removal. Even when the judgment of possession or writ of possession is entered, you have till the end of that day to post all your full rent to
Mm.
get that removed, and you can keep your premises. Then after the writ of possession, it goes to warrant of removal. When it goes to the sheriff and he comes and posts that notice, even then you can pay up your all your rent and that will be removed. So it's a 3-day period. So within 3-day working days. So
Mhm.
if your case is heard on a Thursday, then it will be Friday, Monday, Tuesday. So you get like at least 5 days to work out if you can pull your rent together. And when the sheriff comes, you can say, okay, I'm paying up my full rent. At that point, also you can pay, and you don't need to vacate.
Okay, Seema, I mean, with the change of government, the immigration rights also changes. But have you seen changes when a government changes? Have you also seen changes in such rights, in landlords and tenant
These
rights?
are all state laws. So landlord tenant is all New Jersey state law. It could be
Mm,
different in California, it could be different in another state.
other
I
states,
can
right?
only speak about these are not federal laws. These are
Okay.
state, New Jersey state.
Okay, all right. Next question is from this viewer called MK, and MK has posted this on YouTube, and MK wants to know on H-1B visa, wanted to ask if there will be any consequences if I receive recurring rental payments from my tenant each month.
So on an H-1B, I think you have a social security number, if I'm not mistaken. But non-US owners of property can be landlords. There's
Mhm.
no, so you're a non-US, on an H-1B. So I don't see any reason why you cannot be a landlord and get rental payments. You can own property here.
Mm.
Even if you're living in India and you can buy property here and
Mhm.
rent it out. You have to have a ITIN number, the
Mhm.
individual tax identification number, and you also have to fill out the IRS form W8EC1, which is the certificate of foreign persons claim that income is effectively connected with the conduct of trade or business that they're in. So you can own property and rent it out.
Okay. Okay. I hope that answers your question, MK. Thank you for posting it. And next we have is from Santosh. And Santosh wants to know if a tenant has not paid rent for February, was on a month to month lease and has said they have nothing in the home, can they still prevent a landlord from entering the home?
Is Are you living in the home? Has an eviction been filed? This question needs a lot of follow-up answers before I can answer it. You haven't paid rent for February. You were on a month-to-month lease. The landlord has to go to court to, get an eviction,
Mhm.
to get the judgment of possession to evict you. So I'm not sure whether you're still living there, and if your lease has expired and you're on a month to month, the landlord can move to court to get you evicted, and then they can enter your home after the sheriff posts the notice and locks you out. So I'm not sure whether you're there or
Santosh,
the
what you can
landlord
do
cannot
is,
enter and throw you out. He has to go to court. That's
yeah.
self-help. If he comes on his own and does it, that's self-help. It's illegal. You can go to the police station.
Ah, okay. Yeah, Santosh, thank you for posting your question, but you need to be specific with your details. So I would request you to please send a follow-up question so that Seema can answer it in more detail. And now let's take up another viewer question, and the next viewer is Ashwarya, and Ashwarya is here, and Ashwarya wants to know: are there any specific defense that tenants can use during eviction proceedings in New Jersey, and how effective are they in protecting against eviction?
Yes, there are many defenses. You can, talk about the habitability defense, that it was not habitable, the premises that were given. The landlord didn't follow the lease and do the repairs that you asked for. However, if the landlord evicts you and you have these defenses, you have to post, and you haven't been paying rent, you have to post the full rent before the hearing, you are allowed a hearing. So the courts want to make sure that you're not making up these defenses to avoid non-payment, not paying your rent.
Mm.
So yes, there are defenses, but when you go to court and a landlord files an eviction and you're at the hearing, those defenses can only be fought or tried once you post all the rent with the court.
Mm-hmm.
So the court makes sure, yes, they have legitimate defenses. They're not just making it up. So then once those defenses are heard,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that's when the court will say, okay, uh, so much of the money does not go to the landlord, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what's posted in court.
Okay, okay, got it. I think every case would be closed if they pay timely rent, right?
Yeah.
So you pay your timely
So you
rent and you will
follow
be
your
having
lease. I mean, that's what I said. Landlord tenants should be respectful of
right.
each other, and there won't be an issue. But sometimes people face financial hardship,
Mm-hmm.
and the best thing is to work it out with your landlord. Have the communication flowing. Have a good relationship. so that
Yeah.
they have empathy for you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, so another user question is already here, and Anji wants to know: can a landlord evict a tenant without a court order in New Jersey?
So a lot of these big commercial landlords put a clause in there, the right to re-enter and take possession. And they can do it, but I always advise them against it. You should get a court order to, because a lot of other issues could arise as a result of it. And even though landlords put that clause in and they can do it, they don't, because there are a lot of pitfalls to it. So I would say no, without a court order, do not evict a tenant.
Oh, okay. So court has an important role to play, in the eviction then. Okay, so after Angie, we have Arthur, and Arthur wants to know, has posted this on YouTube, and he wants to know what steps should a tenant take if they receive an eviction notice in New Jersey to protect their rights and defend against eviction.
Pay your rent. You have to fulfill. If 99% it's for non-payment of rent these cases. So if you haven't paid rent and you've received an eviction notice and there's a hearing, you can go to court. So now their process has changed, and they made the process very good for tenants actually. So the first thing you have like a legislative I would call a mediator. So you have the first case manager, the landlord files the eviction complaint, you get a notice for hearing, and the first step now, this is a new law, you have these legislative consultants or people who will first
Mm-hmm.
hear your case and try and see if you can settle it, which
Yeah.
means you work out some kind of a payment plan
Uh-huh.
that if you owe 20,000 to the landlord, you can say, okay, I'll start paying my rent and I'll pay you $500 for the past due rent. So
Mm-hmm.
if you enter into that consent order, you can avoid it if you don't have all that money. So
Yeah.
the first step the courts do is, even before the judge takes it on and trials are held, they have these legal specialists who are trying to help uh,
Mm-hmm.
resolve and settle your cases. So that's the first shot where you can try and settle it with the landlord.
Okay.
And keep the communication open. When you get the notice, call them, say, I want to work this out. But make sure you go to court and have a signed consent order in place so
Mm.
that you're not blindsided. And
Yeah.
normally the landlords will put in it. I represent landlords, so I make sure I put that language. We'll enter into a settlement, but then we'll also put that now, if you don't pay, you miss one payment, we go
Mm-hmm.
immediately to judgment of possession. So the landlord is not going back again and reinventing the process and filing the complaint again. So we put in there that this will be an automatic judgment of possession right after
Mm-hmm.
this if you don't pay. So that way it protects, it helps tenant try and work it out and not get evicted. It helps landlord not repeatedly filing their complaint over and over.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. Thank you so much for answering this question so much detail, Seema. Arthur, I hope you have got the answer for your question. Next question is from Nicholas Watson, and Nicholas wants to know: are there specific clauses or considerations in lease agreements that IT workers, particularly those on H-1B or other work visas, should be aware of regarding eviction proceedings?
I mean, a landlord is going to have a lease that suits the landlord with all the terms that suit them.
Yeah.
So, if you have certain requirements, you should discuss it at the lease signing phase, not wait for an eviction to take place. Your lease agreement should be negotiated if the landlord is willing to do it. And if you have, I'm not sure what issues you would run into, but you can put in that it, a contingent upon my work visa continuing for, if your lease is for 3 years, and you can put something there that it should be contingent upon my work visa renewing each year. And most landlords won't agree to it because if they have a lease term, they want to be paid for that term. But you can try. Some may agree. So I'm not sure what considerations you would want. Discuss it upfront during the lease agreement phase,
Okay. Okay,
because
got it.
eviction can only follow what is in your lease. If you
Mm,
haven't abided by it, then that's what the landlord will use to evict you.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
You've frozen, I think.